Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Rundown, where we talk about 2A news and conservative views. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. But as we all know, I do not do this program by myself.
That's right. My name is Mike Piwowarski, coming to you live from the East Coast. That's the coast with the most from the co-host with the most here on The Rundown. 2A views, conservative views, and Craig, guess what day it is today?
Oh, yeah.
It's raining tacos from out of the sky. Tacos, no need to ask why. Just open your mouth and close your eyes. It's raining tacos.
It's raining tacos out in the street. Tacos, all you can eat. Lettuce and shells, cheese and meat. It's raining tacos. Yum, 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 yummity yum. It's like a treat.
Oh.
Oh, my God. Craig, I would love to hear Elvis sing that song.
You would love to
I would
hear
love
who
to
sing
hear
that
Elvis.
song?
Elvis. It's raining tacos from out of the sky. Tacos, no need to ask why. I would love to hear Elvis do that song.
You know what? I'll bet you through AI, I'll bet you could do it.
Yeah. You know what else you could do through AI, don't you?
What?
Kill us all. Kill us all.
By making us listen to Elvis sing the taco song?
No, Skynet. Come on.
I'm sorry.
machines
I
start
missed
to
that
learn.
documentary.
When machines start to learn, they'll have no more need for us.
There you go. Well, sometimes it'll be like that.
Yeah, the last time. Yeah.
The last time it will be like that. How you been, sir? How was the weekend out at Sona's event out at Freedom Fest there in Florida?
2A Freedom Fest. 2A Freedom Fest. Listen, good event. Brought together some good people, some good politicians. There's some potential politicians. Steve Shives, District 27 in Florida. You got Ryan Chamberlain there from District 24 as a proud Republican in Florida. A couple of others, great people. Eric Pratt from GOA was there. Got to talk to him for quite a while. Jared from Guns and Gadgets. Patrick from the Gun Food. Lots of good Second Amendment supporters and promoters out there. So it was a very good event.
Okay, so this was the first time that Jared was out there, so that was kind of cool. He's a cool dude, man. The gun rights community is full of a bunch of really cool people. I mean, guns aside, just people that are cool to hang out with.
You know what I like about Jared? And I've probably known him 5-6 years, right?
Uh-huh.
Is that every time you see him for the first time for the day, he's like, "Hey, Jared, nice to meet you." It's Jared, nice to meet you. That's Dick. It doesn't matter who it is. I think he does that with his family. "Hey, Jared, nice to meet you. My name's Jared, nice to meet you."
I really don't think he understands how, well known he is. Number one, it's like, yeah, number one, no, but number two, yeah, I've met you a few times. He doesn't do that with me so much because I think there's only a handful of like media people who do guns. So if you've been involved and we've met before and you don't remember me, there's a problem with you.
It's not that he doesn't remember you. That's what I'm trying to say. That's his shtick. That's what he does to everybody.
That's his shtick.
Jared, nice to meet you.
Okay.
Jared, nice to meet you.
Jared, nice to meet you.
Jared.
There you go. All right, sir. Well, hey, let's go ahead and jump into the program today. But before we do, once again, you know what we got to do? We got to pay those bills. Got to let folks know about those sponsors. So give them a quick shout out, Mike.
Yeah, let's add our good friends at Hitman Industries. That's hitmanindustries.net. Hitmanindustries.net. Now you can get yourself an AR barrel for any platform you want. Any AR, you're going to build a rifle, you're going to build a pistol, you can get it. Any caliber you want. Just get your butts over to hitmanindustries.net. That's hitmanindustries.net. California Republican Assembly fighting a good fight behind enemy lines. Now you can take part in California's future today. Don't forget to check out the California 6th congressional race while you're there. Don't forget, Craig DeLuz is North SAC. All right. You want the best of concealment holsters on the market? Check out Hog Holsters. That's HAWG holsters.com, hogholsters.com. Use the discount code The Rundown That's all one word, no spaces, all caps. Get yourself a nice little discount. And if you want the best in field gear, going outdoor gear, going hunting gear, going camping gear, no matter what it is, you can get everything but the gun at uscombatgear.com.
That's right, folks. Just want to remind you, Election Day is right around the corner here in the state of California. Every dollar that you spend, that you invest, that you're willing to contribute, is going to go directly to voter outreach. It's going to go directly to making sure that we get the message out to voters. Just go to CraigDeLuz.com. That's CraigDeLuz.com. Click on the donate button. Give whatever you can give. Now, if you want to volunteer, let's say you just want to make phone calls. Click on the volunteer button, say you want to make phone calls. We'll send you everything that you need to be able to make phone calls to potential voters here in the 6th Congressional District. But whatever you can do to help out, please take a moment and help us out. Also want to encourage you, please go to the website. First of all, go to the description in this program, of this video. Look there. You'll see the links to all of our sponsors. Support them. Go there. Visit them. If you like what you see, spend some money with them and make sure that you tell them it was the guys over at the Rundown that sent you. And with that, we will go ahead and get into our first story of the day. Now, everyone wants to blame, the firearms industry, right? They always want to blame us when it comes to the quote-unquote proliferation, or the NRA. That's the other ones they want to blame. The NRA, when it comes to the proliferation of firearms in the United States, which, by the way, in and of itself is not a bad thing. The proliferation of firearms is not a bad thing as long as it's done by Americans, by people who are looking to defend themselves and defend their nation. Just saying. Anyway, that having been said, there is clearly part of a plan, as reported by Breitbart, by the Chinese government to flood our streets with illegal guns. And specifically, when I say flood our streets, I mean to put them in the hands of criminals. And this is once again being reported over there at Breitbart News. It says the Communist Chinese government has been flooding the United States with illicit gun parts as part of a disintegration warfare strategy it is employing against America, aimed at tearing the country apart from inside, according to a blockbuster new book by Breitbart News senior contributor Peter Schweizer. In Blood Money, Why the Powerful Turn a Blind Eye to China While China Kills Americans, Schweizer reveals how Chinese companies, which are heavily regulated by the Chinese government, are flooding the U.S. and with auto sear switches, a small metal device also known as Glock switches that can convert handguns into machine guns. They are illegal for most gun owners in the U.S., but are being shipped in boxes by the thousands from China, as Schweizer reveals. Mike, once again, they want to blame American manufacturers for once again, the quote-unquote proliferation of illegal guns in the United States. But I think this is just one example of how the role that foreign governments play in criminals getting their hands on guns.
So, curious, Craig, your thoughts on this. I've heard this story go either way. Now we know that these little Glock switches, Glock auto sears, whatever we're going to call them, do come into this country. By the way, the story says most are illegal. Let's be clear. Any Glock auto switch is illegal. It's 100%
Well,
illegal.
no, what they said was it's illegal for most Americans to own them. If you have the right license, you can own them.
So if I'll get to finish before being interrupted by Craig, there is no authorization for any U.S. citizen to own these because that ended in 1986. Glocks weren't developed until the late 80s. No one can own a Glock switch because it's not a pre-86 part. So there you go. Okay.
I stand corrected.
You can't own a Glock switch. Now, if you can go get yourself an old M16 that was made in 1975, 1982, absolutely. But there's no Glocks made prior to 1986, so you can't have these guns for any civilian consumption. Craig, so here's my question: is this an evil communist plot to flood the streets of America with Glock switches for criminals, or is this a money-grabbing Chinese plot to make every product they can that's cheap and crap and flood our streets with it, no matter if it be Glock switches or fake iPhones or whatever it happens to be. Which do you think this is?
Oh, I think both. If it serves both, but you're right. I mean, in terms of flooding American streets with cheap goods, yeah.
Yeah, cheap cloned products. Like look at anything on what are those ones? The Wish and the Temu's and all those sites, right? That's where you find these. By the way, now they've had to change the name of the Glock switches multiple times, but they're still pumping them in. still sending them over by the boatload.
Well, I guess part of it, though, is to keep in mind is that these Chinese companies, first of all, there's no such a Chinese-owned company is owned by the Communist Chinese government. So, in part or in whole. So it's not like there's this private. Now, there are private individuals who are definitely benefiting financially from it,
yeah.
But don't think that the government is not aware of what they are doing and giving it their blessing.
And many of these parts are from Taiwan, also from the other part of China, right? Wink, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the one China policy. There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, interesting book. I'm actually looking forward to reading it. Blood Money: Why the Powerful Turn a Blind Eye While China Kills Americans. And I'm wondering if in that book they're also talking about obviously the fentanyl that's being produced in China and being shipped to the United States via our friends in South America.
Yes, right. That's the code, by the way, right? If anybody ever says to you when they're talking about gun parts, we used to say, where are they from? And they would go, California. And if they said California, it meant they were from China. That's where the parts were coming from. China, to the California ports. Now the ports have listened for the most part, and it was old Trump policies with the tariffs and everything on there. They're still in effect. You still got ships stationed outside of California waiting it in. Now, instead of saying California, we say they're from Texas because they're coming up through Mexico. So the gun parts were diverted to go to California ports. They now go to Mexican ports and they come up through Mexico. So
interesting.
That's the industry code. Where are they from? Are they from Texas? Yes, I don't want them then.
That is actually a very, very interesting question. I hear you. Okay, moving along to our next story. Yesterday we talked about the student who was killed at University of Georgia, who was killed. I'm going to assume, based on the information that I've gotten so far, was likely raped, but was raped and killed by an illegal immigrant from Venezuela. And I told you yesterday that most of the initial media coverage didn't even mention that he was an illegal immigrant, and then the first story that I found was a CNN story. So I wanted to go back and I wanted to show you I'm not the only ones. I knew I was not crazy when I saw this. This is the Washington Free Beacon reporting. An illegal immigrant allegedly murdered a Georgia student. You wouldn't know it from media coverage. It says here an illegal alien who was free in the United States due to a liberal Democratic immigration policies was charged on Friday with the brutal murder of a University of Georgia student. But you might not know that from the mainstream media coverage. It's the latest example of the media playing defense for President Joe Biden's failed immigration policies. At a press conference on Friday afternoon, Athens, Georgia, police revealed that Jose Antonio Ibarra, 26, a Venezuelan national who was not a U.S. resident, had been charged for the murder of Laken Riley, the 22-year-old nursing student, while she was jogging on campus. Later that evening, News Nation's Ali Bradley first reported that Ibarra had been arrested for illegally crossing the southern border in September of 2022 and paroled into the country by President Joe Biden like more than 1 million other immigrants. They say migrants, I say immigrants. Bradley also revealed that Ibarra was arrested in New York later in September for engaging in endangering a child, but was shielded from deportation by the city's sanctuary policies. In a report Saturday, the Associated Press likened Riley's murder to that of Molly Tibbetts, a 20-year-old University of Iowa student who was killed by an illegal alien while jogging in 2018. But the AP did not mention the role of illegals in either case. Instead, the news agency's focus was on the risk of exercising alone while female. Okay, Mike, I take it from there.
I mean, how far do we have to go, right? Illegal immigrants are killing our folks, our children, our women. It doesn't matter who it is, men, women. They're being the victims of crime from Joe Biden's illegal immigrant policy, allowing them into the country. Craig, isn't it? It's odd, and maybe we'll get back there. In the days of the equal rights amongst women, right? We finally got women's equal rights 30, 40 years ago, right? And then remember where we went overboard, like, oh, you can't blame a woman for being involved in a sexual assault if she's naked, right? You're like remember the ridiculous stories? Well, now we're back to blaming the woman again, right? The woman shouldn't be jogging by herself. Oh, the woman shouldn't be out exercising by herself. So we've gone from it's the bad guy's fault to, oh no, it's an immigrant. Ignore the fact that it's an immigrant and blame the woman for out jogging by herself.
Well, and the reason why they're doing it, Mike, is because they're trying to, once again, hide the consequences of a failed policy.
Yes.
Joe Biden's press secretary herself said, look, people who are involved in this, the people who are guilty need to be held to account. Well, guess what? This person was not only in the country illegally because of President Biden. He was released on parole in this country because of President Biden. And because the president and other Democrats promote sanctuary policies, he was arrested in New York for endangering a child and then released instead of being deported. I mean, here's the thing. If he were not in the country, what are the chances he would have killed this student?
Oh, if he was not in this country, there's zero chance he would have killed her. Okay, unless she went jogging down in Venezuela, I guess.
Well, there you go. So I'm not saying that he is solely responsible, because clearly the person who committed this heinous act is the one that is primarily responsible. But the thing they're trying to cover up, the thing the Associated Press and the mainstream media are trying to cover up, is that policies have consequences, and Joe Biden's policies don't have good consequences.
Yeah, and again, the way I see this, now our administration's back to blaming the woman for her own death. These women, how dare they go out and go jogging, knowing that there's migrants as they call them, right? Migrants. They're blaming the woman for their own deaths.
Well, now if he were armed, though, then they would blame the gun.
Yes.
If he was armed, they would blame the gun. But the main point here is the policies that they are promoting are not what they are blaming. And that's the thing that they want. Because here's the thing. Ultimately, the Associated Press and the legacy media they've endorsed these policies. They're okay with these policies. And what they don't want is they don't want egg on their face for them being held responsible for the bad policies that they have promoted and supported.
Yes. Yep.
All right, moving on to our next story. Okay, why is it skipping? Okay, I'll get back to that one later. Okay, we're going to skip down one story, and then I'm going to come back to it because it seems to be giving me a problem. Okay, it says here, former employee, I was a heretic at the New York Times. Now, this is an interesting one here, folks. So this is a guy who was a writer who was part of the editorial staff over at the New York Times. And in this op-ed piece that they wrote over at the Atlantic, this person basically, Adam Rubinstein, points out some very interesting things about how business was conducted there over at the New York Times. And I'll just read a little bit of it for you. It says one of my first days at the New York Times, I went to an orientation with more than a dozen other new hires. We had to do an icebreaker. Pick a starburst out of a jar and then answer a question. My starburst was pink, I believe, and so I had to answer a pink prompt, which had me respond to my favorite sandwich. Russ and Daughter's Super Heapster came to mind, but I figured mentioning a $19 sandwich wasn't a great way to win friends. So I blurted out the spicy chicken sandwich at Chick-fil-A and considered the ice broken. The HR representative leading the orientation chided me, quote, "We do not do that here. They hate gay people," end quote. People started snapping their fingers in acclamation. I hadn't been thinking about the fact that Chick-fil-A was transgressive in liberal circles for its chairman's opposition to gay marriage. Not, quote, not the politics, the chicken, quote, I quickly said, but it was too late. I sat down. I was ashamed. As far back as I can remember, my parents subscribed to the Times, and as a kid, I'd run to grab the newspaper from the driveway most mornings, and we'd do the crossword puzzle together for the weekends. When I got a job at the Times opinion section in 2019, they were thrilled. The last time someone in my family had anything to do with the paper was my grandmother's run-in with the law in 1986. Yada, yada, yada. Anyway, the point is that he goes on to talk about how basically how left-wing liberal they were. And the worst part about it was the fact that they actually worked to shut down free speech there at the thing. And specifically, Mike, he gets into talking about the whole Biden laptop, how they refused to cover it. And he talks a little bit about when the Tom Cotton op-ed, and how basically an editor lost their job because they dared to allow that op-ed to be published.
Yeah, how's the Times even around? They got liberal money getting thrown at it all day long. It's whether it happens to be internal money from the owners or from outside sources. It's their flagship of written liberal speech and hate. Is there anybody really left in the world that thinks that Chick-fil-A hates gay people? If you've done 2 minutes worth of research, that's not true. That's the left putting up their stance against somebody who said we take Sunday off so our employees can worship God if they choose to do so. And from there, well, if you worship God, you must hate gay people, Craig. It was a quick line for them to jump. And that's what you get.
They say so because the owner of Chick-fil-A actually contributed to Prop 8, which was an initiative in California that had nothing to do, by the way, with gay with all it did was say marriage is between a man and a woman.
Yes.
It really didn't have anything to do with gay people. It was a definition of marriage according to biblical standards, and as you already noted, the president and founder of Chick-fil-A happens to be a Bible-believing Christian.
Yes. So if you're a Christian, you hate gays. Just know that's how they want you to be seen. There's no ifs, ands, or buts in between.
Right.
It's just A equals Z. That's all there is to it.
Well, because they don't want any resources going to anybody. They don't want anybody supporting anything that might even remotely be challenge their values. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
What gets me about a lot of this stuff is that it's not like we sat down in society and had a debate and a discussion and, hey, we changed our values in terms of our beliefs towards what marriage is. No, we just had a bunch of people say, no, you're going to allow this to be the case. Because every time I know of that marriage has been put up to a vote, voters have said, yeah, marriage is between a man and a woman. Every time.
Yeah. Very true. Very true.
I don't see it as I don't see it as even being in question. But anyway, what do I know? I'm just a conservative.
Yeah, well, a conservative that does research and actually looks at answers and looks for truths rather than going to a place like the Times and reading blindly what they say. You know what I love about the Times, Craig? I love their paywall. because I've never paid their paywall and I never have to read their garbage.
No, I find my ways around the paywall when I want to read something. And usually what I'm trying to read is I'm trying to get their perspective on something so I can understand what sort of feces they are. But I refuse to give them money.
I understand that, but there's, like you said, there's ways around that, and I'm not giving them a dime.
Nope, not a penny. All right, this was the article that I was looking for, and I couldn't understand why I didn't have it up, but now I got it up. U.S. Army is cutting force by 24,000. Now, Mike, I think you know the reason why they are cutting force, do you not?
Yeah, listen, this is so our federal government. The U.S. Army, along with the Air Force, the Navy, the Marines, the Space Force, the Coast Guard, everybody in existence is short their recruiting goals. Okay, nobody wants to be part of this government. Nobody wants to go out and do liberal missions. Nobody wants to go out and do missions that have no purpose. Nobody wants to be part of the military right now. You got your career people that are sticking it out. Ironically, use the word stick. How many people got out over the jab issue? And now the military's so short, Craig, they're calling back people that got thrown out because they refused to get the jab. Hey, come on back in. It's okay. We're going to pretend like we never threw you out in the first place. They're calling back retirees in the Air Force. Hey, you want to come back for a couple more years? The Army is doing their best to keep people, but they're 24,000 short. So in the spirit of how our government works, Craig, the Army has rather than say we are short soldiers, they've decided to say we're cutting staff. We're cutting staff. This is akin to the restaurant. I like to give the restaurant example when I talk about the government. This is akin to the restaurant that says, man, we're not making enough money. We're barely breaking even. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to cut staff. We're going to cut hours, and we're going to increase our prices. And therefore, we'll break even. And that's what they're doing here. The Army has said, well, we're getting rid of 24,000 jobs that we don't really need anymore since the war on terror is over. A lot of them were counterinsurgency positions. Let me tell you how many positions in the Army are counterinsurgency titled. That many of them. Zero. There's no counterinsurgency jobs. What you have is every individual job, whether it be intelligence, cavalry, infantry, as they mentioned by name in here, deal with counterinsurgents. Well, they've decided that they're going to get rid of whole jobs and whole units all over again and leave people in manpower short because, well, we don't want to say we're short. We'll just say we cut jobs that we no longer needed. The jobs they cut, Craig, no one job in particular. They just went by units and said, oh, wow, we got 5 or 10% loss at every unit. We'll just cut overall strength at every unit is what they've done. So they've made the Army weaker once again because they can't meet their recruiting goals and they don't want to admit that they can't meet their recruiting goals.
Well, and it worse about that they don't want to admit that they can't, but they don't want to admit why they can't reach their recruiting goals. Mike, you have served in the military for how long?
Over 25 years.
Okay, over 25 years. Give me a generalization, a generalized, what's the word I'm looking for, profile of the average person who signs up for the military.
You really two kinds and a mix of both kinds. Those that have the desire to serve. You know, whether it's to serve for 4 to give back or to serve for 20 years, it's those that have the desire to serve. And most of them have, whether they're their first generation or the third, fifth, sixth generation, and it's the family business to serve. The second are those that, hey, can't get a job. And these are some really good benefits to help kickstart my life. I understand that this 4 years of discipline and maybe 4 years worth of college benefits that I'll get from this will help me and place me in society later on. That's really where it comes down to. Now, in that second group can be people, well, Craig, I can't get a job. Let me see if the Army's hiring. It's seen as a job to them rather than service.
Right.
But it's both come in and for the most part do wonderful jobs as soldiers.
But overwhelmingly, I mean, from what I've heard from other sources, they generally tend to be male. They tend to be straight males, or at least openly straight. I don't know what they're behind the scenes. They tend to be center right, and they tend to be very patriotic. But when you have when you are injecting into the military philosophies that work against those things, that tell you, well, if you're conservative, if you're white, if you're a male, then you are oppressive. I'm guessing that you're going to get fewer and fewer people who are from that normal demographic that are signing up for the military to actually sign up.
Yeah, and this is black, white, and Hispanic. Let's be clear on that. You get in and you serve alongside each other and become each other's brothers. You're right. It is majority. I would say 75, 80% vote conservative inside the military. This is why you had the mass backlash to the mandatory jab, where you saw everybody being discharged and getting out because it's not their beliefs, and they're not going to have this government put down these things upon them. When Obama was president, we had to deal with. We became the experiment grounds for their societal beliefs they wanted to put down. They sent them down to us first, and then we got to fight with them. But all of their little experimental policies we get to deal with first before the public does.
Well, but what's even worse about it?
Conservatives have said not doing this.
But what they're also doing, Mike, is now you look at what the alphabet agencies are doing when they talk about concerns about white nationalism and white hate. Being a former member of the military is now considered a warning sign that you could potentially be part of a white nationalist hate group that's against America.
Yeah, it's just, again, more of this administration's methods to have people believe that anybody on the right is the devil, Craig.
Yeah, because they can't win the argument based on the facts, so they have to demonize. They can't win the debate, so they must demonize.
That's right. There you go.
There you go. All right, folks, now we're coming to our parting shots, brought to you by Hog Holsters. Just go to hogholsters.com, use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces. Get your hog holster today. All right, our first story here is, along the lines of the story we talked about, the university student who was killed by an illegal immigrant, and rather than admit that they have a bias, mainstream media is now reporting that police warn women not to jog within 2,000 miles of an open border.
See, it's the woman's fault.
It's the woman's fault. By the way, these all come to you via the Babylon Bee. So just so y'all know. So it is satire. So those of you claiming, trying to come at us for fake news, this is all satire. I don't know if you heard, Mike, but Donald Trump Jr., someone mailed to him an envelope with some white powder in it. And according to media reports, Hunter Biden is jealous after Don Jr. receives an envelope full of white powder.
Yeah, it's clearly Hunter's powder. Look at that. I mean, it's
clearly they mailed it to the wrong first son.
Looks 80% pure, right? Yeah.
Maybe it should be rocked. Maybe if it were rocked, it would be more his, right?
He's not a crack addict. He's a rock monster.
Oh, and then finally, the chair of the RNC, or the Republican National Committee. She's resigned, and apparently, according to this report, now has a new job. It says here, Ronna McDaniel hired as DNC chair due to extensive experience defeating Republicans.
Oh, all right. She could get a job as Grimace, it looks like.
Yeah, she was not. Just long story short, she was not a very good Republican. She was not a very good chair. She lost more elections than she won, but she was a friend of Kevin McCarthy. So, then there's that.
I love old Kevin. He's my favorite ex-senator, ex-representative.
Yeah. Well, hey, stuff happens. In any case, all I can say is bye-bye. So glad to see you go.
Bye-bye.
Honestly. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Okay. Well, folks, it's time to wrap it up today since we're just about done. But before we are done, we have to give one more quick shout out to our sponsors.
Yep, Hitman Industries. That's hitmanindustries.net. You can get AR rifles AR barrels in any length you desire. You want them in 4.5 inch, 5 inch for your pistols. You want them in 16 inch for your rifles, 24 inch for your snipers. You go on over there and get them. It's hitmanindustries.net, and they'll hook you up. California Republican Assembly fighting a good fight behind enemy lines. Now you can take part in California's future today. Make sure you check out the California 6th congressional race while you're there. Remember, Craig DeLuz is North Sac. And then, of course, if you want the best in tactical gear on the market, get out and check out our friends at uscombatgear.com, or you can get everything but the gun.
Folks, once again, please take a moment, visit our sponsors. They do a lot to help us out, so we try to do a lot to help them out. Help us, help them, help you. Visit them. Links in the description to the program. And with that, we're going to call it a day. We appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you liking and sharing the program and encouraging your friends to do the same. We will be back tomorrow on Hump Day. Until then, y'all stay safe. Have a good time.